explore. We flew 10 hours to get here, and I want to go ahead and get started. So this is New Jersey, in case you don't know. New Jersey is not too far from New York. I live in Hoboken, New Jersey, and it's a great place because where I live is on the edge of the water, so I'm separate between Hudson River, and I can see New York just by walking to the edge of my backyard. So it's a really great place to be. If you ever come to Hoboken, let me know. And so this is the school that I teach at. So it's a private school where students pay, and they have a great education. We have a great sports team. We have an awesome art department. This is my third year working at Pingree, and it has about 250 acres of land, and it's a great place for trying to do great things there with sustainability and going green, and we have chickens now, and we have a lot of sports, and this is what the art department looks like. On the left, this is yeah, okay. This is the ceramics lab that we have. We have a master ceramicist who teaches the students ceramics. This is an example of one of my students' work, and that's all hand printed by a Barin and a paper registration. That is like a fake Kinto that I got the students to make a multicolor print. And we did social justice prints. This is the art room where I teach, and there's about 4 tables. It's very spacious, great lighting. It definitely talks about what Ambassador Kondo talked about, a connection to nature. Nature is definitely surrounded by my school. We have an art gallery where we show professional artists' work. We get a chance to use it as a teaching resource, and also the interdisciplinary coordinator for working with teachers to get them into the classroom and incorporate that into their lessons. This is my student printing with the Barin, and this is a student signing their edition of their prints. This is my work. I'm an MFA printmaker. I got my master's from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. So I spent 2 years learning all about silk screening, litho, intaglio, no woodcuts. I didn't learn about woodcuts until I met April Vaughn, which I'll tell you more about that later. This is the installation of my silk screen, and I basically tore up my whole print to make this installation. It's various colors, and it's a photograph of gentrification and how buildings seem to kind of get dilapidated and not taken care of. And so I related that to like people, how if we don't take care of ourselves or each other as human beings, then we can become dilapidated like buildings as well. And I had, this was part of a show that I had in Chelsea, New York at Rush Arts Gallery, and I had about 3 walls. I had 2 walls that had the 6 smaller pieces, and I had a bigger wall that was like about a couple feet big, and it was really, really great to show it in a big space. This is my silk screens, and I use a combination of the technology, a little Adobe Premiere, sorry, not Premiere, that's for filmmaking class, Adobe Photoshop, and I also added human hair eyelashes. I hand cut the hair, hand cut the cornrows, and I painted over the eyes, so a lot of hand work with technology. The one on the right is I did that in 2015. It's called 181. So I do a whole series of domestic housewives series, and I like about the 50s and 60s time periods. I think that's where we kind of lost what housewives are as far as like the advertisements. I'm really fascinated by Life magazines and all those things. I collect them. My husband's tired of me collecting magazines, but I love that time period, so I have a lot of them. I've got a chance to be part of not the Whitney Biennial, but it's the Whitney Houston Biennial. And it happens every year, and I got invited to participate, and it was a whole bunch of female artists, probably over 100 artists around Soho area, not too far from Chinatown, and it was a great experience. And the curator of that show was Christine Finley, and it happens every year. And it was like people were outside the door just trying to get in, and it was great, and it was a great show. I think the one on the right, I was part of Volta, New York, and Scope in Miami during Art Basel. And about in 2015, I got invited to be part of a print portfolio. And basically, I'm in works with like Kehinde Wiley, who else is in there? Derek Adams, like if you know any of those names, well, I'm part of that portfolio. And this portfolio is used to raise money for the foundation, the Rush Arts Foundation. This is Mokuhanga and me, so I wanted to kind of give you an introduction about who I am and everything, and I want to tell you why Mokuhanga is important to me. When they had the call out for everyone to submit their proposals to present, I said I had to be here because I got a chance to be part of MeLab in 2015. I had a chance to work with Keiko for about a month, And she was like my mother away from home. Like, she would boss us around and tell us to clean up the house on Sundays, and she'd come looking for you. You're out too late. Where were you at? Like, you know, she was really making sure that I was safe. And so during that time, I got a chance to understand the Japanese way of life, like nature, and like no TV, right, and no radio. So it was just all about the experience of learning moku-hanga in Yamanashi. This is April. That's my first time I met her in 2012. April said I stalked her, but I think I did not. She got a chance to be part of Nagasawa, Keiko's earlier projects, and I was looking for artists that could teach me about woodblock. I tried to apply, and after I got to grad school, but I didn't get in. I got through the second round, so I was so close, because I had a relief background, but I didn't know a lot about woodblock. And so I felt like it wasn't my time to go. And so then I researched, and I found that it was one of the USA artists, and she was in New York. So then I started to research her, and I think I might even found her phone number. I called her. I was like, are you going to be at the Botanical Garden? I want to know more about moku-hanga. And then she's like, yeah, I'm going to be here. So she gave me the date. She didn't even know who I was. And so I went and I found her at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, and I was, you know, you can see I have my notes or something, and she showed me, and she said I was asking so many questions, but I was just so excited at the fact that she was in New York. I can learn about moku-hanga through her. And we developed a relationship. I took her class like 6 times at the Lower East Side print shop. I was a renter there for about 5 years, and I took her class there, and every class I'd always learn something new. I didn't care that it was the same syllabus. I didn't care if it was the same information. I felt like I wanted to better myself as an artist. What is this? Code. Where's the technology person?
Maybe you can just close it.
Okay. Accept. Okay.
Cancel. Yeah.
Okay. And so this is my first moku-hanga print. As you can see, my first print, it was very basic, but it had at least about 3 colors, and it didn't have a background. So I didn't want to start off to, you know, bite off too much more white and true. So I just focused on the figure. So it was just a blank background. And this is my first class, and this is me at MeLab. This is probably like week 3. I made about 2 series at that time. By the time I left MeLab, I made a total of 4, which is my first time doing full color. Before, I would just do like just the figure and color. But when I went here, Keiko's like, okay, you know, do this whole background. You have to do 4 colors, and here's your colors. I'm like, whoa, what? You know, I didn't know what to do. But after practicing with the watercolor for the first time, which is very difficult, I grew to like it a lot with full color. This is moku-hanga and me, because I feel moku-hanga brings people together. I got a chance to network with people from all around the world. I got a chance to present because of April at 2014 IMC in Tokyo. I presented there for the first time there, and it was great. It was like just great to meet Keiko and other people from around the world. She came to my baby shower. This was her show at Florence Neil's gallery, Kinsler Gallery. And this is recent at Yatsuwa, Katsu Yatsuwa's recent exhibition in New York. And this is my daughter, this is my husband. And April's exhibition, and this is the same night, and that's Katsu. So when I traveled to Japan, I got a chance to meet other artists who were interested in moku-hanga just like me. This is Sadie from Hong Kong, Jocelyn from Australia. You know, this is a really important guy, right? He makes all of our tools that we get the chance to use for moku-hanga. This is Hiroki Satake, and he got a chance to teach us when I was at MeLab. And why are we here? So I'm hoping that you guys are really interested in learning more about teaching in public spaces, getting outside of our art studios, and teaching the communities in which we live to bring people together. So the importance to me, I feel like what you guys can relate to as well, is that it preserves the art of moku-hanga if we get outside of our spaces and bring demonstrations or workshops to people outside of where we create work. Self-promotion, you can promote yourself. You know, when you get a chance, you can network with other people, pass out your cards, let them know what you do, and it's a good way to promote you for other jobs. Connects communities. So we all know everyone's studios does not look like a Picasso. I don't have them here, but Alexander Calder, you have Frida Kahlo, you have George O'Keeffe, what gives you mood to, and Keith Haring. And these are some of the artists that inspire me. But maybe your studio looks like this. Maybe it's not a celebrity studio, but maybe it's a place where you create your work. But it's important that we come out and you see the benefits for yourself and for the community. So when you're in your space, right, let's pretend that you are in one of these big spaces or a small space. Or maybe you're in a space that everything's everywhere, but you can find it, that's fine, you can find your tools. But in your own space, you're able to concentrate, you're able to have no interruptions, you have a quiet space, you can produce without anyone being around, and you have privacy. But when you come out the walls of the studio, right, there are other people around, you're teaching what you know, it builds confidence in yourself, it strengthens interactions with the public. A lot of times, you're not used to going out and meeting people and talking to people and having kids touch your wood blocks or having the students actually print from your blocks. If it's already cut, I don't think any harm can be done, but it also definitely helps with your social interactions. Good practice of sharing and demonstrating for large groups of people. Even if you're in your studio, you can demonstrate for maybe 1 or 2 people or maybe 10, depending on the size of your studio. But if you're at a museum, you can demonstrate for up to 20, 30, maybe 100 people, depending on the size of the space. And promote yourself as an artist, inspires your art making process, and forms relationships with communities. So benefits for working with the public. It helps to build confidence in individual students and any adult that comes to your space. In this case, I want to show you the picture of this young man I got a chance to work with when I was pregnant with my daughter. It was last summer. I was in Newark, New Jersey, and as you guys know, Newark has a really interesting history about the past and how they're trying to revive the area. And so I do this whole thing called Protest the Print. So I've done that workshop about 2 or 3 times. And it helps give students a chance to think about an issue that is important to them. And I bring out just stenciled, just basically there's shadows. In this case, he made up his own himself, but I have templates of protest silhouettes, and they take that and make that into their prints. But in this case, he wanted to make a print about no hate. So I feel in this case, it made him feel empowered, and it's just, even if he just made it just for that one day, he felt empowered just by making that print. And all printed with a Barin. And so it helps students and participants to understand the world in which they live in, and it helps them develop problem skills and promotes the importance of the arts. So here are some examples of public spaces. So, everybody has probably already done this, but I'm giving you just some examples of what you can try to do with your own work. Outdoor festivals, museums and art galleries, libraries, art centers, print studios, and universities. So if you know any of those in your area, just reach out to them, give them postcards, send them an email, maybe have photographs or examples of your work that you've done in the past, of your own and students' work, and send out a packet to them and see who responds. You never know until you ask. Some of the people who I am looking at is Hiroki Satake. He does amazing work in Japan. He takes stencils, he takes elements of printmaking, he makes really gorgeous and great and gigantic murals. And he's one of my, eye candies for Mokuhanga and community work. Another eye candy would be Hiroki Monroe. And he has the art center. I won't be able to attend, but if you get a chance to see it, at least you'll be able to see some of the work that he does at the Donkey Mill Art Center. And he does amazing work with the community as well, and he's an amazing individual, and so is his work. April Balmer, this is a picture of, I think it might have been, looks like 2012 when I met her. So I think this is what it looks like, what it looked like for me when I first saw her for the first time at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. I probably had never even gone to the garden, but I said I had to meet April. So I said, I'm going to go to the garden today and I meet her. And it was an enclosed space, so I didn't have to worry about the weather. And this is 2012, and this was the Brooklyn Botanical Garden. This is Mara Gonzalino. I haven't met her yet, but I'm hoping I can meet her before the conference is over. But I really like the fact that I found this photograph of one of her workshops, and this was in a bookstore. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about a bookstore. So this was one of the demonstrations she did in the bookstore. Okay. This is Katsu Iwasa, and this was the art show he just had, solo exhibition that he had in New York recently. and this was in the Ronin Art Gallery, so he did a demonstration in the art gallery. This was Florence Neil, and I got a chance to talk to her about this photograph. I told her what I found, and she's an artist from Red Hook, New York, and she has Kentler Space, is that correct, April? Yeah, Kentler Space, and art gallery, and that's where she does all the work, and she also promotes other artists and has shows and auctions to raise money for her own organization. And she got a chance to print in a garden in Italy. So if you want to know more about that interesting space, you can talk to Florence Neil before the conference is over. So navigating. Now, it looks all peachy clean, but there's a lot of things that go with working with spaces, because things can happen and you just deal with them as you come to mind. So what's the purpose of the workshop? That should be the first question you ask yourself. What's the purpose of a workshop? Who will be in attendance? Will it be children? Will it be adults? Will it be mixed ages? How many people? Those are some questions you should ask through email or by phone conversation before you even set up your workshop. What is the budget? You have budgets from maybe like $200 to like maybe $75, but I think the most important thing is that you have a set of your own supplies that you can recycle and reuse, so that even if the budget is small, you can work with whatever they have, depending if they can get enough for paper, right? You can always have your own ink, but paper, and you have your own barins, you don't have to throw that away, you keep using it over and over. So I have a big bin in my basement. I just use the same barins, same ink, same palette knives over and over. So all I really need is just paper and foam, depending on what type of print I'm going to be doing with the participants. How long is the workshop? Is it 1 day? Is it 2 days? Is it a month? So all those would be into factor about the budget as well. And what spaces are available. I've been in spaces where I'm like, okay, there's no sink in here. How far is the bathroom? It's like, whoa, it's like, so you have to always, this thing keeps coming up. You have to always think about the space and how you're gonna be able to navigate. So if that's the case, I bring wipes, baby wipes, just in case I can't get to the bathroom. And I just try to make sure that I have, things to clean up quickly if I need to. Here are some of the challenges. So be aware, like, you have to probably put your money up for the first couple hundred or so, maybe not at all if they give you the money right away, but if not, it might take like a couple months for you to get your money. Depending on if it's an education system, if it's government, if it's a nonprofit, they gotta cut your check, you gotta wait, you gotta call, or it got lost. So all these things can happen. So just make sure that you know that up front, and if you get recycled materials, you don't have to worry about the money coming right away, but just make sure you keep your receipts and print it out as a PDF, save it as a PDF, so that you say, okay, here's a receipt, here's a PDF, so they know exactly how much it's going to cost. And you can save as PDF, and that's really important. Keep your file and folders on your desktop. Small budgets, you can work with any budget, because if you have your own recyclable material, like I said before, then you already can, you don't have to get a lot of the supplies. Clean up. Same thing with the water. If there's any water, you have to think about what can you do within the space. You can put paper down to protect the tables, you throw the paper away, you have your baby wipes. All those things are quick ways to clean up. And also you might want to think about having an assistant. I have an assistant who's a high school student. I taught her maybe like 5 years ago. So I give her a little bit of money, and then she helps me clean up, and she helps assist me. And it's good to have an assistant for help clean up, because you might not have that much time. Loading supplies. So there's been times where I have my car, I'm like, oh, I have to go around, this hallway, I have to go upstairs, and there's maybe not an elevator. I'm like, whoa, there's stairs only, and like you have all these different things that can go into play. But if you get like a Tupperware bin, you put all that in there, you can, if you feel comfortable directing other people's staff, which I don't have any problem to do, you tell them, look, I need someone to help me bring this bin in. But if you have like a bin and all these things are going to be difficult. But if everything's in the bin, all they're doing is bringing up one bin with all your supplies. So just just don't be afraid to ask for help, because you're doing them a service, and you don't work for them. They're working for you for the day or however long the workshop is. You got to go in with a boss-like attitude, okay? An experienced coordinator. So you have people who think that they're your boss, but they didn't hire you, right? So you're there for a service. So you need to let them know that you are there to serve them for that day, and you will be treated as an artist, as an individual, and as a human. And if they can't, understand that, then you decide to continue on, or you leave. And I've had an instance like that before, where I couldn't continue the service because it just wasn't a healthy environment for myself I just had my baby, and you know, it was just something happening with that, and so I decided I left all the materials that she bought, and we parted ways, and it continued. But that was only one time that ever happened at all workshops. But in that case, the female had just started, and that was going on with that. But other than that, I worked with kids for 3 days, so they still got a chance to do the service. But it was the service for others because of that instance. So don't be, you know, don't feel upset, you know, that if it can't continue. But if it's not a good space for you, then you just have to stand up for yourself. Because in the end, you'll be the person who feels bad. The weather. So if you're outdoors in the outdoor area, maybe you want to have something that's quick. Maybe not a demo. Maybe you just put out supplies. But weather can be a big changer if you're not prepared for rain or hopefully not snow. When it's snow, we have a lot of snow in the north. But just be prepared. Look at the weather and be prepared. Low enrollment. You might not have enough students, but it doesn't matter if you have 5, 4, 3, 2 children or 2 adults. You make it seem like this is really important. You take your time with each individual. And I had maybe 5 kids in one class, and the little boy said, "This is the best class I've ever had." He was so excited. So that for that time, it was really important that that this service was happening for him. Location, unfit classrooms, like I said before, not enough water, things of that nature. Okay, sorry. And so it's important to know about the spaces beforehand. If you can get a photograph of the space, or maybe go and look at the space before you do the workshop, then that'll work as well. Lighting and acoustic. I had a recent one in March at the Newark Museum for Black History Month, and it was a really big space. They were in between not even having any exhibition, but it was a really echoey space. There was a band going on next door, and but I knew all this was going to happen beforehand, so I made sure I had the cameras that we have in the demos for our demonstrations in the other building. I had the camera set up, I had a microphone, but it was still hard with the acoustics. There was a big space, so it really carried, but I made sure that the TV monitors, they could see, if they couldn't hear me, they couldn't see what I was doing. So ask about what materials they have as far as technology and camera overhead recording if possible. And these are some of the strategies. So I think about the space when I'm thinking about doing a workshop. Think about it when you start to do your first or maybe many or more workshops. Audience, these are just some review. Amount of people, assistants, if you're going to have assistants, if not, bring your own. Water supply, budget, storage, and time duration. How long will it be? And I think I mentioned a lot of this before, but I'm going to just really go through it really quickly. Staff of each location, like how many people will be there to help you, when you do your workshop that day. Keeping a good inventory of supplies so that when you do the next one, you know how much that you need to order, or if maybe you don't have to order anything, just make sure you know how many supplies are in your inventory. Bring enough equipment and resources to provide for larger amounts. If it's not enough, then you run into a problem. Just make sure you always know your inventory before you go. And examples of your work, postcards, if you have postcards, any books, anything that you can hand out, people might like your work. You might want to pass out a postcard or a few to promote yourself for the next job. Or maybe selling the work, I would hope. And ordering supplies, they can vary. I don't always do woodblock with all of the workshops, but in this case, it was a small group of students. I had a flower that I pre-cut, and I had the paper was already torn in size. And so in this case, this was one of my first times I got a chance to do woodblock printing with small students. And then I also like foam, the print foam, or I like the sticky adhesive color foam, and you can cut it and you can glue it, you just stick it to foam, and it can make a relief shape. And of course, bright colors, because students like bright colors when they do their prints. And make sure you have clear instructions. Either you have them drawn out, or maybe you're taking your time and making sure you're instructing to make sure everyone knows step by step. For clear instructions and step-by-step guidance, you're taking your time and making sure everybody sees what you're doing. They understand you have to walk around, make sure people are on the same page, and if not, you help get them to where you want them to be. And presentation, I do PowerPoints for some of my demonstrations sometimes, most of the time, and maybe you want to have step-by-step via PowerPoint, or you can do it with, actual demonstrations. And I think the most important thing about the technical process is my first time this is one of my neighbors that came, and my neighbor bought 2 of her girls, and so I let them to print from one of my blocks. which is the first time ever. But you have to feel comfortable, with what you're doing and how it's important. And I just let them do a sumi-e print. It wasn't a full color, but just that experience of her rubbing the baren against the tracing paper and just the whole process, I think was just a great experience for the students that were able to come to that workshop at Newark Museum. And the future of teaching Mokuhanga. For me, I just came back. This is Keiko. Everybody knows Keiko. And I just came back, and so I think she came from the garden. The person next door would always give us like lettuce and like she'd go and spring flowers and put it in the kitchen. And so I told her I think there might be scallions or something like in there. But I said, pose, Keiko. I took that picture, and I didn't know that would be the last time that I would see her. But I knew, like, just walking around, seeing children, I said, it has to be a way for our lab to connect with the community around. And I said, I have to make this message to be clear, is that, our pack as Mokuhanga artists in here, I hope is to connect with the community, and hoping that going forward for anybody who's on the board or anybody who has any connections to make decisions for Mokuhanga IMC, is that we take the lab artists and take us out of the studio and maybe even do some like school group like tours of the studio, or maybe even teach a lesson or two to the local school that's right now in Nashi, or anywhere. It could be in Tokyo where the gallery is, and maybe we can go to local schools and show international artists coming together to pay respects to Mokuhanga and this tradition. So going forward, I hope that you guys can help to make an impact to make sure that we are able to bring everyone together for Keiko and for the rest of the IMC. Thank you for coming here today. This is my last picture with Keiko. Oh gosh. And so this was before the bus came to get us, and there was the last time we all were together. And that's something I always want to remember, is before we left, that's how I remember Keiko. And thank you for attending my presentation. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Or you want to say anything about anything? Any questions at all? Yes, I know you have one.
I just have to say, you are so organized. I have taught those classes in weird places. Everybody wants to know about Mokuhanga, but they don't have the funding, and they don't have the supplies, and they don't understand what it's about. I'm always showing up with trying to carry everything myself. I don't have a car like you do. But that's a really nice practical approach to making a list of, and asking for help. Oh my God, I never ask for help. Jennifer does. I need lessons from you. Thank you, that's great.
Thank you for attending. Thank you for teaching me. Yes.
Could I ask an example of your workshop? What kind of Mokuhanga do you teach? What is the most engaging for children?
I think the most engaging would be the protester print. This one. Of course, we use like the acrylic ink, but we still print by hand multicolors, and we use a baren. I think that's one of my most meaningful workshops, is because they can make a difference with not only making art, but it's something that's important to us. It's like, using a social issue, something that is in their heart, and I think that's the most important. You don't want to just make it always a pretty picture, but make sure that your audience has a connection to what they're making in some type of way.
This would be for older kids, though.
Older kids, but if it's younger, it would probably be, this is the Children's Museum in Manhattan, and it was like they had an exhibition called Hello from Japan, and I was the Mokuhanga artist to like let the kids know, like, this is an artist who might not be from Japan, but she's influenced by her work, and so I basically have these like Xerox copy like kawaii. They were kawaii, cute little animals, and so I made like templates. All they had to do was just cut it out and trace it onto the color foam, cut that out, and then a lot of steps still involved, and then use the baren and of course acrylic ink. But this was like with families, and sometimes I don't have any adults that are there, but if you have templates that kind of gets them halfway through the step, then you can get through more difficult, more tedious like processes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So have you had kids, like, I'm assuming obviously a little older, actually do like the wood block carving yet, or?
The first time I did 2014, I could have repeated that, but I had a photograph. I got a chance when I was working in Harlem. I taught there for 5 years, and I chose to do a small group of 5 students that I chose, and they actually did the actual carving, the actual printing. I had Berin that I had borrowed from the Lower East Side print shop, and I had tools from the Lower East Side print shop. And I was a renter there, so I didn't have to buy the tools, which was great. But they knew me because I was already a renter there. So if you already have a relationship with wherever you practice, they can let you hold it for a day. You know, if you've been paying your rent, then why not ask them to borrow a couple of supplies to help children? Who's going to tell no to children? So just make sure you have information like who you're trying to serve and why it's important, and type it up, and then maybe they'll let you borrow. But definitely, it was a Harlem when I had those photographs. If I give you information, I give you so that you see the PowerPoint I had from back then.
How old about were they?
That was high school.
High school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
For your kids classes, I always avoid doing those community classes with kids because I have a 4 and a 6-year-old and I know how chaotic it gets. And so, what's usually about your size that you limit it to when you do those types of little kids classes?
This was interesting. Good question. It can be a little chaotic, but I don't mind the chaoticness because as long as your tables are organized, then it doesn't matter if there's 20, 30 kids in there. In this case, the Children's Museum of Manhattan, I had 2 assistants. My husband was there, of course, and so there were tables, and in this case, they couldn't just go to the inking table. It was full. This class was full. There were adults there. Sometimes there might not be parents there, but if you have assistants in the room, then you might not need for adults to be there. But I had kids that were like, this. Look at this little boy. He looks all of maybe 3 or 4, but he's cutting. So I think if you get the parents involved in assistance, then I like chaoticness as long as you're organized. You can't be unorganized and then you have chaoticness. So I think it's all about preparing in advance. And before this came, there's a lot of work went into planning this. I wanted to know the space. You sent me a photograph. I sent the manager how I wanted the tables to be, how this would be set up. So when I walked in, it was already organized and set up before I came.
So do you actually, because then I also think about parents not wanting their kids to get messy. So do you, as a prerequisite for the signing up for the class, do they get some sort of a handout, make sure they wear clothes they can get dirty in, or you have to,
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, I
or
feel
all over the tables.
Yeah. It was covered here, and that's a good question. But I think at the Children's Museum, you think about where you're going to be having a workshop. It's a children's museum. The kids are going to be messy, right? It's an art class, so they should automatically know this might not come out. You can always say in the beginning, if they want to leave in the beginning, they can. But if it's a children's museum, something that's for children, then you can't expect children to be nice and neat all the time, because you know how long that lasts. Not very long. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for coming.